Use cases for the setDefault dict method. The addition of collections.default dict in Python 2.5 greatly reduced the need for dict setDefault method. This question is for our collective education. What is setDefault still useful for, today in Python 2.6.7? What popular use cases of setDefault were superseded with collections.default dict?
You could say default dict is useful for setting defaults before filling the dict, and setDefault is useful for setting defaults while or after filling the dict. Probably the most common use case: grouping items in unsorted data, else use itertools.groupy. Sometimes you want to make sure that specific keys exist after creating a dict. Default dict doesn't work in this case, because it only creates keys on explicit access. Think you use something HTTP-ish with many headers. Some are optional, but you want defaults for them.
I commonly use setDefault for keyword argument dicts, such as in this function. It's great for tweaking arguments and wrappers around functions that take keyword arguments.
Default dict is great when the default value is static, like a new list, but not so much if it's dynamic. For example, I need a dictionary to map strings to unique ints. Default dict int will always use 0 for the default value. Likewise, default dict incim always produces 1. Instead, I use the regular dict. Note that dict.getKey nexted is insufficient because I need to be able to refer to these values later as well. Incin is a tiny class I build that automatically increments an int and returns its value. If someone has a way to do this with default dict, I'd love to see it.
As most answers state, setDefault or default dict would let you set a default value when a key doesn't exist. However, I would like to point out a small caveat with regard to the use cases of setDefault. When the Python interpreter executes setDefault, it will always evaluate the second argument to the function even if the key exists in the dictionary. For example, as you can see, print was also executed even though 2 already existed in the dictionary. This becomes particularly important if you are planning to use setDefault, for example, for an optimization like memoization. If you add a recursive function call as the second argument to setDefault, you wouldn't get any performance out of it, as Python would always be calling the function recursively. Since memoization was mentioned, a better alternative is to use functools.ru_cache decorator if you consider enhancing a function with memoization. ru_cache handles the caching requirements for a recursive function better.
Ouch.